Good morning, YouTubers. Working on the 95 Del Sol once again. This is the one that we blew the differential out of last summer. And now we currently have no clutch. So, and I did look at the clutch, at least briefly, while we had the transmission out. Didn't see any kind of problem with the springs at that time, but it doesn't mean that they aren't there. So anyway, we got no clutch. So we've got a new clutch to put in here. So I'm going to take you through a quick breakdown here.
Yeah, that's okay. It's recording. All right, so we got borescope in on the looking at what the throw-out bearing is doing on this clutch. So we're going to see pushing in.
The throw-out bearing should be making equal contact with all of the pressure plate springs, which you can see it is not.
Yeah, but
and we'll see shortly that the clutch pressure plate is no longer sitting flat against the flywheel.
As always, we start with getting the car up onto the jack stands, wheels removed, tucked underneath. I've already taken the liberty of breaking that axle bolt off on both sides because the axles do need to get pulled in order for us to drop the transmission. So, but we'll get down to this in just a minute. I'm going to start up at the top. I've already got the intake out from the turbo piping. We took the battery out as well. Next order of business will be taking off the starter. So we'll disconnect just this line which comes in from the battery. The other one actually is just an internal wire that goes for the starter, so don't take that one off. Save yourself the time. And this has two bolts that hold it in place. You can see one is there, and the other one is hidden down there. A little bit of a bugger to find, just because you got to fly blind, but you can see them quite plainly. So we'll pull those off. We'll remove the ground here. We will disconnect speed sensor right back there, and disconnect the wiring harness for the reverse light there. And that should be what we do up at the top end currently. Okay, and just like that, those are 14mm bolts that take the starter off, and right away we can see some damage that has occurred from our clutch fragging, because we're missing a part of the shaft there. It's gotten beat up. Well, again, we'll just make sure that that's not interfering, and we're just going to keep on grinding away with that starter, because the starter itself is good. But you can see we got some frags in there. Okay, so quick recap. We've disconnected the VSS variable speed sensor. Starter motor is out. I have taken off the bracket here, which is for the slave cylinder, which has also been taken off right there. And again, our reverse signal unhooked right here, which is fine. Again, you can leave it actually hooked to the bracket, because, well, that bracket's going to go down with the trans. Actually, it's going to come off as soon as we pull this bolt that's underneath here. So so you don't really want to keep that connected. I'm wrong, because this bracket will come off when that bolt comes out. So and that has to come out in order to, well, drop the trans. All right, so this is top side done. Now we're going to bottom side, which means we have to get, again, axles out. In order to get axles out, we need to break ball joint loose, which is a brand new part. This should be simple work for us. Tie rod end, also new part. If you recall, we did all the chassis components on this very recently. So we'll break this, break that, swing it out, Gotta take off the damper fork there in order to get the shaft out of our way. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Just a quick little idea here. In order to break the ball joint loose, you can do the whack-a-mole, which is what I have done. But since I got a new ball joint in here, I might actually just do the old, use the spring to pop this thing. So you can wedge a wide piece of metal, usually a 1/2 inch ratchet handle will work. You jack up the whole assembly. This is, of course, after loosening the castle nut and taking that down. Jack up the whole assembly, keeping your spring and shock all intact. Jack it up, slide the handle in here, release the jack quickly, it'll push down and pump, pops that right open. Really quick trick, which might save you some banging on the end here. Also, a quick note, there are other videos that on the web that do show, doing the clutch replacement, and they remove rotors, calipers, all this. Look, you actually don't need to do all of that. Once you get that loose, you can swing this out of the way, take out your shaft. You're good to go. You just need the shaft out of the way. You don't need all this other crap out of the way. Okay, so I did just use the mallet, whacked right here. That broke the ball joint loose really easily. You whack on the nubs there on your spindle back here. Just give it a good whack there. It allows your tie rod just to pop right up and out. So give it a good sharp whack there a couple of times. You should see it just jolt loose. You just shock it loose from there. Then I took off the damper fork, top, bottom bolt. So the through bolt here, top bolt is just a pinch bolt. Then you can press down on the lower control arm, lift the spindle out, and then just push your shaft out through the center this way. Then your shaft will be hanging down like that. And then you'll have the bugger of trying to get those things disconnected from the transmission. Because for whatever reason, these are being stubborn as can be today. So once you've got those axles out, you're pretty much ready to start getting toward taking the transmission down itself. So next thing that has to come off is downpipe. On the standard manifold, you will have 3 bolts that come up from underneath. You have to back those out, and then the 2 spring bolts back to the cat. On our little turbo setup here, we've got, I don't know, 4,000 bolts that wrap around the side here. So that's only going to take us about all day. And then we'll take it from the back end, drop the downpipe down. That will give us access to the bolts that come in from the side here. Otherwise, you just don't have access. So, yep, downpipe has to go. All right, so we've got the downpipe off. We still just left that gasket just hanging on there, or not. So I got my son, Channel Locks Nate, laying under the car.
Hey, NZH Productions here.
NZH Productions, YouTube him, subscribe, like and subscribe. Anyway, so downpipe is out. We had to manhandle those stupid shafts out, but they're out too. So now we are on to taking out the backing plate that is underneath here. So there's a cover plate right here that needs to come off. Shift linkage right here will need to come off, and I leave that to Channel Locks to take out that stupid spring pin, because that drives me absolutely crazy. Intermediate shaft has to come down. And then big mounting bolts and the trans mount up there. And we're ready to slide this thing onto the ground to throw a new clutch in it. Okay, so shift linkage is off. Intermediate shaft is out. All of the bolts are out. There are 2 large bolts here on this T-bracket that hold the trans. This is a blocked 2 trans bolt, block to trans bolt, block to trans bolt. Cover was here. The bad news is that in taking off the cover, we have, well, pieces of metal. Not only pieces of metal, but I would call those hunks of metal. And interestingly, there's a hunk of metal that's from the trans, or from the clutch. And what? That is a clutch retaining bolt. That's interesting. Anyway, we're gonna find out as we get in here. All right, so I've taken out the 3 bolts here for the front or side engine mount, trans mount. You also have to take it out from underneath, right there. That's a 19, 3 17s here. Get that assembly, which looks like that, out of your way. And I've taken off the 3 top mount bolts for the side trans mount right here. And so we are pretty much ready to drop this down. Now, before I took off the mounts, I went ahead and put a block underneath on the jack so I could take tension off of the trans, because it just buggers up threads. Anyway, all right, we're gonna shimmy it out, lower it down. Look at the carnage. Okay, so the trans is dropped. We've got some damage on the clutch, it looks like, on that pressure plate. We're going to disassemble that and take a quick look at it. I thought one of these springs would be broken, but it doesn't appear that way. It appears like it's got, I don't know what the hell this thing has in there. We're going to find out what kind of clutch this is. But whatever kind it is, it's broke at this point. So we kind of thought our throwout bearing was wrong, but it's actually smooth and new. But if you notice, we got lots of little flecky flecks in here. Pieces of metal and nice red paint. Oh, and there's a big old, well, I don't know. That thing might be worth something. That looks kind of like a gold nugget, only it's, well, steel. And you can see that we chewed up the bell housing. Well, a little bit. Okay, maybe a ton. Hold on, you got stuff on your, you got stuff on it. You got hair. And everything spins and works the way that it's supposed to. We don't really have any problems that way, so far as we know. And Nady Nate, or good old channel locks, it's actually checking outputs and making sure it's underneath. It's on the other side with the towel in it. So we're just going to make sure that things are spinny and shifty and doing things like that. That's right down here, Nate.
Well, really, anything rotating that was behind this is fine, because, I mean, oh, that's a bee. We
got a bee coming in to say hello. Anyway.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just smacked you in the head.
Anyway, so this is what happens when clutches go kablooey. And this is also why, when you have a race application, it's sometimes wise to put a scatter shield on this, because, well, parts can go a-flying when you're shifting at 9,000 RPM like channel locks tends to do. All right, so we got the pressure plate off, friction plate off. We're going to check behind, just to be sure you don't have any metal frags hanging out behind that flywheel as well. But here's the damage. So, literally, mounting portion came right off. I don't know what brand of clutch this is. It was on the car when we got it. It is probably a Yonaka, but I don't want to say that out loud. But I know that if it's an action clutch, which we are going to replace it with, those dampening springs there are enclosed so that it's trying to stay, well, stout. And you can see there's some nice glazing on this disc because it was uneven wear as this thing was loosening up. Now, here's the other thing that was really disconcerting. Every one of the mounting bolts that came through here, they were like finger tight. I don't know who put this on, because I don't know really anything about the previous owner. But I can tell you, they were not torqued correctly. And and literally walked themselves out. That literally walked itself out, allowed this to sit diagonally, and then just started tearing itself apart, getting hot spots. This is not really what you want to find when you open up your trans, but it makes sense as to why it went kablooey. So again, just a real quick show. Those are the shards of metal. That's the bolt that backed itself completely out. And this is where it was all supposed to be. That was supposed to look something like this flange here. So, yeah. Kablooey.
There we go.
So, channel locks matching things up right there, and
But we're not missing. Like,
we're
there's
not
no-
missing parts or pieces of metal. So we think we got them all, but we're still gonna like clean her up. So this is the clutch that we're putting in. This is an action clutch, ACR 0476. Stick with the best. We're gonna find out how well this thing sticks pretty soon. It is SFI certified, so that means something to somebody. Not to me. I don't know. Anyway, so comes wrapped up nicely here. Very cool. Everything's pretty. We get a lanyard. This is sweet stuff when you get lanyards. You gotta love that. New bearing for the flywheel and clutch alignment tool. You get the throw out bearing as well. And then we get our nice new pressure plate that, well, look at that. It's actually complete. It doesn't have a flange. That's destroyed. So we got that going for us this time. I'll show you the difference in this friction plate as well, and this is the reason that I actually went with this setup. All right, so this is the new friction plate, as you can see, and we're going to compare that with the old friction plate. Now, you might notice that the friction pads are slightly chamfered, whereas they're just going to square it up there. But the bigger difference that was really the selling point for me is that those dampening springs that are in the center, which are open, this one comes with 6 smaller ones that are enclosed. And you want to get a sprung friction plate. There are, you know, those that don't spring them on high race, you know, like full on blow them out type of clutches. But the problem with those is you are going to get all kinds of chatter. This one's going to give me, well, kind of chatter as opposed to all kinds of chatter. Now the other thing that's a little bit noticeable now as we look a little closer, you can see the hot spots on the friction material here and here and here. This is all uneven wear because it was no longer centered on the compression plate. The pressure plate was no longer sitting flush. So it would give me pressure on one side, but not the other. So it was basically doing this inside the transmission, whoop, 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 whoop. And then you get hot spots, cold spots, hot spots, cold spots. Anyway, needs a new clutch. So again, we're going with the action clutch kit, and again, comes with a cool sticker that says that it is SFI certified. So, so that's got to mean something to one of you out there. And just so you know, that side goes to the flywheel. Do you know how I know? Because it's labeled flywheel side. Actually, you can see it's got depth on the one side here with those springs. So that's going to sit inside of the pressure plate. This is going to go flush to the flywheel side. Really, you should be able to do this yourself. So we got our clutch alignment tool along with this. So that's going to help us make sure that that splines in correctly. We can check to be sure that that's the same spline pattern, but it should be. And it comes with a new bearing for the center of the flywheel if you're going to pull and replace. But we're going to do the right thing and clean it and just throw this one on. So I'll probably have some clutch chatter, but oh yeah, by the way, did I mention the 6-puck will probably give me some clutch chatter. So I'm going to do the right thing with this old clutch, and I'm going to box it up and make it look brand new. And I'm going to offer it for sale in the comment section below. So if you want a blown clutch at a dirt cheap price, if you just pay shipping and handling, you can have this. Otherwise, it'll be in the trash today. So comment quickly. So we're just doing a little cleanup on the bell housing, or I should say, well, channel locks is doing a little cleanup on the bell housing. Then we're going to throw in the throwout bearing that came with the unit. Even though the throwout bearing that we just had in there was brand spanking new about, I don't know, 2,000, maybe 1,000 miles ago, something like that. And you need to use super high temp urea grease from Honda in order to grease all of these areas. So you want to grease the nose that throwout bearing is going to ride on. You're going to grease the ball pivot there. You can do that on the inside or the back side of the shift fork as well, so you can hit it back there in the hollow. And then you're also going to do, where's the spring for it? You're also going to do these pivot points on this side, as well as, believe it or not, you can actually hit the splines there just to make it slide on nice and easy. But we're going to put this nice new 6-puck clutch from Action Clutch so that we can stay gripping. Got it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of the things that you want to do before you go too far with this, clean off your friction plate there, clean off your flywheel. Brake clean works great. Rubbing alcohol also works. Then before you even start mounting things up, these pressure plates are keyed. In other words, they only go on a certain way because those dowel pins that are sticking out of the flywheel are offset just a little bit. So they triangulate through these little holes. And what you want to do before you even start assembling is get that thing lined up. Make sure that you actually are holding your pressure plate in the correct position, that it locks on there and sits flush. If not, you just rotate it literally a third, try the next pin, a third, try the next pin. Then this clutch is nicely labeled with the manufacturer, Action. And I just pay attention to the fact that that's to the front of the car, so that's where that's going to be as I mount it. All right, so then you assemble your clutch in your hand. Try to keep things clean. Again, don't have your greasy mitts hitting it. Make sure your flywheel side is facing out, so pressure plate side is against the pressure plate. Clutch alignment tool goes into the center. You'll see that the center locks into the pilot bearing. So we're just going to take this whole assembly down. And I'm working from the top. Wow, channel locks is working from the bottom. And I'm going to put that into the pilot bearing. Lock on there. There. And there. So now we've got flywheel in place. Now, come on back up here, channel. If you notice, when I showed you how to mount this before, I put that thing on flush. That's what your bolts will do. They will pull this thing in to being flush because you got to get pressure on these springs. These springs actually need to lay out flat. When you start pushing on them, they're going to lay. Right now, they're pushing in on that pressure plate like mad. There's no way that you're pushing this thing on. Those bolts will draw it on. They go on with, I believe it's 19.8 pound-feet of torque, and I can tell you that when I took them out, they had about, I don't know, 3, which is a problem. All right, off we go. All right, so we've just got the 12-point bolts in finger tight right now. So this is all being held in place. We're going to give this just a little bit of a lift up to make sure that it stays in place, because now we're going to start slowly walking these in, and we're going to do it as a star pattern. So we'll tighten that one in a bit, and then we'll come up across it, tighten that one in a bit until it gets a little snuggy, and then to the next, and just again cross patterning this, not cross threading mind you, just a cross pattern of tightening, do a star sort of pattern like you do with your lug nuts when you're changing a tire. And as you get in tighter, throw the torque wrench on it. Don't guess, because the previous owner must have guessed, that feels okay. Now, I made that mistake working on my other son's WRX. It was supposed to have 10 pound-feet of torque. I said, yeah, that seems enough. Nowhere close. He had no pedal whatsoever. So, again, use the torque wrench. It's what they're made for. Now, again, as channel locks is just snugging these things up and I'm talking my face off, notice that those springs have started to lay themselves down flat. Okay? So they're actually tucking in as we get closer and closer in. And as I said, that should lay flat or flush to the flywheel. So you can see how the pressure plate is now going in and ending up, this is the way we want it to end up, is flush to the flywheel. And then with 19 pound-feet of torque. I'm going to throw the PDF picture into this video, so feel free to pause it, print it, I don't know, whatever you want to do with it. Write down your torque specs because, well, they matter.
Pause here to get the torque specs for all the bolts in this job.
All right, fellas and girlies. So, as I said, when this thing's torqued in correctly, it'll be flush. We got that at 19 pound-feet on our new pressure plate flywheel setup. We jacked up the transmission because, well, I don't want to break my back. This is supposed to be a fun car. It's not supposed to hurt me. So we jacked her up, line up the dowel pins, walk it on. This was a pretty tight fit for that clutch. In fact, even removing the clutch removal tool was a little tight. So that thing's really locked onto those splines, which is very nice. We have gone ahead and tightened up all of our mounting bolts here. Here, I've got my backup light already on. Mounting bolt there. Channel locks is working underneath. We've got our trans mount bolted back up. T-bracket from underneath is bolted back up. VSS will get plugged in momentarily. Then starter will go on. I'm actually currently just working on putting clutch slave cylinder back into place, which we'll just lay over top of this bracket here, bolts into the front there, pass her through that there rubber boot. I did put a little bit of that high temp urea grease right on the ball as well as on the receiver end. So that should take care of that annoying little creak that you get as your car gets a little bit warmed up and old. Anyway, so we're moving on. The mounting bolts were at the trans mounting bolts as we were putting those on. Those go to 33 pound-feet of torque. Yes, we use the torque wrench. So just saying, use the torque wrench. It's what you have it for. All right, so going through the mental checklist now. We've got VSS hooked back up, starters back in place, positive terminal on, starter signal line in place, clutch master cylinder, ground, I'm sorry, brake, that's slave cylinder. I've got the backup light indicator. So now I think I'm left with intake and then battery up here. And we got to do downpipe still, but we're getting there. We should actually have pedal. I haven't tried that yet, but I might give that a go. All right, so we've got shafts back up, damper fork back in, ball joint locked back in, tie rod end back on. I am just going to put some new cotter pins on there. Channel locks has gotten the downpipe up and in. Front mount on. Now we're just loading up the intake charge pipe, and then the old lightning cube needs to go in, and we should be good to go. Now, just to let you know, again, I did all the torque specs on the damper, so again, I might just post that one up too. So, but make sure that you lock things in tightly. No sense driving down the road and losing parts on the way. All right, so we started this morning at about 8 o'clock, and now we've got wheels and tires back on. Everything's buttoned back up. Mounts on, intakes on. I had to do a new nipple here for the blow-off valve. This is the bob. Anyway, because the other one is plastic as well. Unbelievable. Silver plastic. Metal, whatever happened to metal? I don't know. Metal must be so last year. Anyway, so I had to throw on just a nipple that I had from Brake Bleed kit until I can get another one. Anyway, but that works. And since I'm not really going to be building a whole lot of boost over the next couple of weeks, months, I don't know, 500 miles. That's a long time for a car like this to break in this clutch. Anyway, so everything's buttoned back up, and what we didn't show you is that we did actually move the battery back up to the front of the car because, you know, it's behind the shock tower, it's way closer to the starter, and it just works better up here. So everybody that puts them in the rear end of their car, just realize that if it's behind your shock tower, it's already balancing your car. You're not really changing your weight and balance and all that crap. So I don't know. Not my thing. And having it back there was a pain in the arse. And it just lost power quickly. It just wasn't good. Anyway, so I'm sorry. I'm on a little bit of a tangent here, but we moved that up. Not today. Anyway, everything's up and running. I did actually test drive it, but I'll take you for a little test drive as well. And we're only going up to 4,500, and it's loud because, well, race car. So one of the other real quick things that I'm just going to show you is that I put on my not so sticky rubber. So this is actually like old, not so great. It's Otsu brand, which is actually the parent company of Falcon. So these are actually Falcon Zeeks. I guess they're the 912s or something like that, but they stopped making them in 14-inch sizes. So anyway, had to go to the Otsu brand. And anyway, I put these on so that they're slippery because I'm not trying to beat up my clutch. I don't need it to be getting tons of grip and all of that. So anyway, so these tires are literally on just to do my break-in period. And then I'll start putting my real meats back on. It's alive! Alive, I tell you! Anyway, alright, so I've gone ahead and reset my trip meter to 000. So I just won't reset that until I hit 500 miles. Everything seems to be running. You'll notice occasionally that my idle will drop because she still needs a little bit of a tune. I might have a little bit of an air leak from that skunk 2 intake manifold. That's why it idles so high. Apparently I need to change something on the gasket. I got gasket material in there. Got to cut me a new gasket. But I got to plug one of the holes. Which hole? I don't know. I've never done this stuff before. Anyway, let's see if we can get this thing to move a little bit. Oh, yep. We're going to wait for this car to pass. Alright guys, so they do say that there can be some chatter with this clutch. And I'm not supposed to go above 4,500 RPM or get into boost. But you can see I can go through all the gears pretty smoothly. That's third. There's fourth. That's fifth. So it's running, it's driving, it's good. We're gonna get some mileage on her. Alright, so that's it for today. We got this thing done, started it at 8 o'clock. We're done. It's not even 2 o'clock and on the road. Talk to you soon.